On December 8th of 1980, John Lennon was murdered on his way home to see his son. Lennon had had a very busy day. A photo shoot with photographer Annie Leibovitz for Rolling Stone, an interview for a radio show, signing autographs for fans outside his home, and working on a new single in the recording studio. When he and his wife, Yoko Ono, got home, a fan was waiting for them to return. Mark David Chapman, as it turns out, had been stalking Lennon since October. Chapman found his moment and shot Lennon in the back 4 times. His reason for this is still unclear. On the following day, Ono issued a statement. There is no funeral for John. John loved and prayed for the human race. Please pray the same for him. Love, Oko and Sean. John Lennon was born in England on October 9, 1940. He found his rise to fame with the rock band The Beatles. The Beatles' popularity grew worldwide, playing to hordes of screaming young women throughout the 1960s. During that time, Lennon met Yoko Ono in her art studio. He fell in love with her art, and her ideas. Together, they began making art and music that pushed the comfort zones of the time. The Beatles broke up in 1970, and Lennon started to focus more on politics. He and Ono had bed-ins for peace, anti-war concerts, and pushed message of hope and tolerance. They even had "War is over, if you want it" billboards commissioned in major cities all over the world. But on Lennon's birthday in 1975, Sean Lennon was born. The arrival of Sean changed the way that Lennon and Ono wanted to live life. Lennon had a child from a previous marriage and decided he wanted to be a better father for Sean than he had been for Julian. Lennon went out of the public eye at this point. In May of 1979, he and Ono issued a statement called A Love Letter from John and Yoko, explaining, "Our silence is a silence of love and not of indifference." Lennon became a house husband, which was very controversial at this time. He loved describing his days, watching Sesame Street, making lunches, and going to the park with Sean. In his last interview, he states, "My life revolves around Sean. Now I have a sort of more reason to stay healthy and bright." It was this side of John Lennon, the father out of the spotlight, that my mother could relate to. She had always been a Beatles fan, but never appreciated the more out there things Lennon had been doing. In December of 1980, my mother was raising a young boy and pregnant with me. Watching Sesame Street, making lunch, and going to the park described a lot of her life too. She loved Lennon's song, "Beautiful Boy," which he had written for Sean. When my mother got to work on December 9th of 1980, all of her office was abuzz with the news of John Lennon's murder. Who would do such a thing? And why? An article in New York Magazine put into words what many were feeling. Somebody murdered John Lennon. Not a politician, not a man whose abstract ideas could send people to war or bring them home. Not someone who could marshal millions of human beings in the name of justice. Not an actor in the stage of history. In retrospect, my mother feels she was very naive at this time. Growing up in an upper middle class family in a Minnesotan suburb was a sheltered life compared to some. She was starting a new life with a new family out in the real world. For my mother, John Lennon's murder was an eye-opener and a reality check. You do not have to be someone with big ideas in Washington, or away at war, or in an abusive relationship to be murdered. Sometimes, bad things happen when you're on your way in the front door to read a bedtime story to your son.